Hello everyone, this is your friendly neighborhood math teacher, Mr. Bennett. Today we're going to go over lesson 4.3, and this lesson is really all about the different situations and scenarios that can occur when we're surveying or sampling that can lead to bias, right? That means that we might either underestimate or underestimate the actual data value or percentage of people that we would see if we were able to survey the entire population. Okay, so in today's lesson, for each of these questions, our goal is to identify what is wrong with each of these surveys and to explain why. So question one, the mayor of Springfield, if you don't know, it's referencing to The Simpsons, but the mayor of Springfield is interested in finding out the average age of people in the city. He obtains a list of all the landline telephones in the city and then contacts a simple random sample of 300 people. He uses the data from the sample to estimate the average age of all the people in the city. So what is wrong with this survey? Well, really, the big key here is the fact that he's using landline telephones. You don't know what landline is. Some of you may still have them at home. A lot of you probably don't at this point. I know I don't have a landline telephone at home. My parents still do. And so some of your parents might, or some of your grandparents might. But a landline telephone is basically the type of telephone that is in the classroom that's just sitting up on the wall. You would have it at home. It's plugged into the wall, or some of them are even wireless. But it's like your home phone number, not your cell phone number. Okay, so those are called a landline. And so a problem with that is a couple of things. So one, not everyone will have a landline. Right? I can almost guarantee if I was in class right now and asked you this question, there's probably only a couple of students who are raising their hand and seeing who actually has one of these. Okay, so that's kind of an issue, is that we may not just be reaching everybody because not everybody has a landline phone. Those who do, okay, typically, those who do have one are older, right? So if we are calling landlines to survey and try to figure out the average age of people, we're probably getting a lot of parents, maybe even grandparents. So those ages are going to be a lot older, right? Most of you high schoolers and little 8-year-olds don't have a landline phone, right? You might have a cell phone, but not a landline phone. And so we just might not even be able to reach a lot of young people because of that. So that's kind of an issue. And kind of the last major issue with this is if we're calling landline phones, and I'm sure some of you have done this before, but in this case, what if they just pick up and not everyone may answer the phone, right? I don't know if you've ever seen that where you get a random call on your phone and it says telemarketer or spam risk or whatever, and so you just don't even answer, right? You just let it go to voicemail or you hang up right away. And so that is kind of an issue. And so these two kind of main ideas are two really big issues. So the first one being where not everyone has a landline. So if we are excluding a whole group of people, this right here is what we call under coverage. I am covering under the full amount of people, right? I'm missing out on a whole group of people based on the decision I made, right? I'm missing out on the young people or just the people who don't have phones in this case. Okay, and the last one, the fact that not everyone can answer, right? Some people just choose not to answer, or they say, they answer the phone, say hello, they hear that you're trying to collect a survey, and they're like, yeah, okay, bye, hang up. This is an example of something we call non-response, where I send out a survey, quote unquote, send out a survey, and they just choose not to respond. Okay, and that's also an issue, right? If I've selected people that I want to gather data from, then I need to gather the data from them. Okay, so that's an issue. Now, question B, Do you think that the mayor will over or underestimate the true mean age of people in Springfield? So again, right, thinking about this scenario, I'm calling these landline phones. It's probably a lot of older people. And so in this case, the average age he's going to get is probably on the older side. So he's probably going to overestimate the age. And why is that? People who have a landline phone are typically older. And you could add to this, right, that younger people typically don't have them. Okay, but we get that's kind of implied in this case. Okay, so his under coverage, right, missing out on all those young people means that I'm going to overestimate the age of the true average age of the people in his city. So again, those are two big things, under coverage and non-response. Now, question 2 says the administration at a school wants to know the proportion of students. Proportion, again, right, when we see this word here, proportion, we want to think percentage, right? Know the percentage of students, the proportion of students that did not do their homework last night. They select a simple random sample of 100 students and send an email to each of them asking if they did all their homework last night. Of the 40 responses, so again, they selected 100 students and sent an email, 40 responded, and of those, 6 of the students said that they did not do their homework last night. So 6 out of 40 turns into 15%. So again, there's lots of things wrong here. What is wrong with this survey? So again, not everyone, especially students, right, young people typically, checks their email. I kind of have to because of the nature of my job. I check it pretty frequently throughout the day, but you guys probably don't check your emails super often. Another issue with this is that only 40 students responded. So I tried to collect data from 100 students, and only 40 of them actually sent it back or replied to my email. That's kind of a big issue, right? This right here is an example of non-response, right? They're just not responding. And the last kind of main issue with this, right? So again, students are getting an email from administrators saying, "Hey, did you do your homework?" Students might not be super comfortable answering that honestly. And so in this scenario, students might lie and say they did do their homework. And how's the administration going to know, right? They just get an email back that says, "Yes, I did my homework." And as far as they know, you were being truthful. Okay, so this right here, this idea that the administration is sending something out and the people who are responding are trying to play a game, basically, right? Like, hey, what do they want to hear? These people who are asking me this question, what's the answer that they want to hear? This is an example of something we call response bias, where people are more likely to give a specific response simply based off of the question asked and who's asking the question. Okay, so there's already some bias built in because of the fact that they might change their answer based on the scenario. And so question B says, do we think the administration will over or underestimate the true proportion of students who did not do their homework last night? Well, again, we didn't get a lot of data to begin with. And of those 40 responses, only 6 kids said that they did not do their homework, right? 15% did not do their homework. That means 85% of kids did their homework. That seems like it was kind of a lot, right? So in this case, the people who are not doing their homework, because that's what it's asking for here, the percentage of kids who did not do their homework, is probably an underestimate, right? This 15% right here is saying 15% of kids did not do their homework. Yeah, that number's probably a little higher, right? I'm not saying it's 100% did not do their homework, but it's probably higher than 15. It's probably 30, maybe 50, maybe even 60, 70%. And so the fact that they only got 6 kids who said that they didn't do it, could it have been true? Maybe, right? But in this case, why did they underestimate this? Well, again, the students who actually responded were either proud of doing their homework or they lied, right? Either there were a lot of kids who that night just happened to do all their homework and they were super proud of that, or they lied and said they did their homework when in reality they didn't. And let's be honest, let's be real, that's probably what would happen in real life, right? If we actually asked, if we went through this whole scenario, there's probably a lot of kids who would lie and say they did their homework, right? I ask some of you in class, did you do your assignment? And some of you try to lie to me. It happens. I'm not saying that I'm mad at you, but it's the nature of the game, right? You don't want to upset me. You're trying to give me the answer I want to hear, that yes, I did my homework, but that's an issue, right? Again, that's that response bias aspect of this. Okay. And so question 3, scenario 3 says, Boy Scout Peter M. wants to know the proportion of people. So again, there's that word proportion, right? Proportion, think percentage, the percentage of people in his neighborhood who support the Boy Scouts. He takes a random sample of 30 homes and visits them dressed in his uniform. So what's wrong with this? Well, if people see this little Boy Scout walking up to their house and the little boy says, hey, do you guys support the Boy Scouts? I'm taking a survey. The people are probably going to try to be nice to him, right? They're going to see his uniform and they feel obligated to support because of that, right? Because they see his uniform. They know he's a Boy Scout. Again, that's response bias. They're giving the kid the answer he wants to hear because they know that's the scenario. So how would we get around that? Maybe we'd have a random person who's not a Boy Scout just show up in regular clothes, right? If I don't know that this person's affiliated with the Boy Scouts, I might be more honest with them. So do you think our Boy Scout, Peter M., will over or underestimate that percentage of neighbors who actually support the Boy Scouts? It's probably going to be an overestimate, right? He's probably going to get a lot of people who say yes, they do, even when they don't, because people are more likely to lie and say they support the Boy Scouts to make him happy, right? They don't want to see a kid walking away all sad and depressed because people don't like him, right? They're going to be like, oh, of course, yeah, we want to see you happy. You're a good little kid. Yeah, of course we do. go on your way. And whether they do or not, the kid will never know, right? But I'm going to tell him because I want to make him happy. Okay, that's a problem. So therefore, he's going to get a lot of responses. People say yes. Even in reality, it's probably not that high, right? There might be a lot of people who still support it, but it's probably not going to be that high. Okay, that number is going to be over the real number of people. So in surveys and when we do sampling, right, there were several different things that could introduce this bias, this over or underestimating of the true percentage. And so to kind of recap all of those here in our quick notes, the first one is undercoverage, which is when some people can't be chosen. And some examples of this are calling landlines, let's say we're surveying homeowners, right? Not everyone owns a home. Some people rent a home, some people rent an apartment. Okay, so like the fact that we're just doing homeowners can mean that there's several different types of people that aren't chosen. Okay, so we might not get a full set of data. The second one is non-response, which is when people can't be reached or refuse to answer. So some examples of this would be that they just simply don't answer, or if they hang up. So if I send out a survey or send out an email link or whatever it is, and they just simply don't answer to it, or I call them and they just hang up in the middle of it, it's an example of them not responding. Okay, and that's an issue. If I've chosen people that I want to get responses from, I want to try to get them. Okay, I got to do whatever I can to try to get that feedback. And lastly, number 3 was this idea of response bias, which is when the interviewer influences the answer. So some examples of this could be simply in the wording of the questions. Am I using language that's really strong? And I'm trying to kind of create this narrative with just the way I'm phrasing the question? Or am I putting people in scenarios where people might lie? Right? I'm giving them pressure to answer a certain way. Right? For example, just another version of something we did earlier, right? Like let's say the cheerleaders were trying to get opinions on how people feel about cheerleaders, right? If you go around dressed in your cheer uniform, people might be nicer about how they actually feel because they're gonna know you're a cheerleader versus if you're not, right? If we just have somebody who's not a cheerleader and just regular street clothes goes and asks without knowing that you're connected to them, they might give you different answers. I'm not saying that they will, but I'm just saying that that's a possibility, okay, that we have to look out for. And the issue with all 3 of these, right, why are all of these a problem, is because they can lead to bias. Okay, so a kind of quick example, I'm going to go through this lesson app, so if you don't really want to listen to this part, feel free to stop the video and be done. But I'm going to kind of quickly go through these last couple of questions here, just to give you kind of one more big example. It says, one of the most famous flops in survey history occurred in 1936 to predict the outcome of the presidential election between Republican Alf Landon and Democrat Franklin D. Roosevelt, also known as FDR. The magazine Literary Digest sent over 10 million ballots to its subscribers. Quote unquote ballots, right? Not real ballots, but just to get an idea. They also sent quote unquote ballots to registered owners of an automobile or telephone. So its subscribers got a ballot, and registered owners of automobiles or telephones. So they sent 10 million to the subscribers, also sent ones out. Of those, of all the ones they sent out, only 2,400,000 ballots were returned, with a large majority favoring Landon, 57%. The election turned out to be a landslide, but for Roosevelt at 61% instead of Landon. So question 1 says, explain how undercoverage might have led to bias in this survey. So how did we do undercoverage? Well, ballots, quote unquote ballots, were only sent to subscribers, and automobile / telephone owners. And at this point, right, like in terms of American history, people owning automobiles and phones. So this is again 1936. So you think about this. This is coming out of the Great Depression, right before World War II, or kind of in the start of World War II. The Civil Rights Movement hadn't happened yet, and so people who owned cars, owned phones, were probably pretty wealthy. If they have a subscription to Literary Digest, right, these people are probably fairly wealthy. There may even be a racial aspect to this. I don't know, to be honest, but there might be at this point in American history. And so because of this, right, those people, those wealthy people, people who typically have a lot of money, wealthy people typically are more conservative, aka Republican. And again, not all wealthy people vote Republican, but a good chunk of them, maybe even a majority of them, do typically agree with a lot of conservative policies because it helps keep the money in their pockets. Now, question 2 says how non-response might have led to bias in this survey. And so in this case, since only 2,400,000 out of the 10 million plus surveys were returned, or ballots, we should say, ballots were returned, it might have affected the data since only those with strong opinions would respond. There's a couple of different things that might come out of here. One of them being that really it's only the select people who are like very strongly yes, and I want to make sure that this info gets in there and my voice is heard. One of the other things, right, again, kind of towards that like wealthy line, the people who have these phones and cars and subscriptions to magazines probably have the means to return the ballots versus people who don't. Or don't have the time in their day to take some time off of work or to have stamps to fill them out, turn them in, drop them off at the mailbox, all that kind of stuff. But really, it's just this idea that we didn't collect all of the data we were looking for. And that's kind of a big issue. And then question 3, if the magazine followed up with people who didn't return their ballots and was able to obtain those responses, would this eliminate the bias described in question 1 or 2? Explain your reasoning. And so in this case, finding those people who didn't turn in the ballots and actually gathering those responses would eliminate the non-response bias in question 2, but the issue of undercoverage would still remain. Right? There are still people who would not be capable of even receiving these ballots, right? If you didn't own a phone, if you didn't own a car, and you weren't subscribed to our magazine, you could not have possibly gotten this ballot. And so there's a whole chunk of the population that just never gets a chance to respond. Okay, so even though I am fixing the issue of the people who didn't respond in question 2, I still have that issue of there's just a lot of people I'm not reaching, and I really want to basically allow everyone to be reached. Even if I don't reach out to everyone, everyone has a chance at the ability to be selected for this. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you don't have too many questions. But if you do, feel free to reach out to me. Like I said, I will be around the next couple of days. I just won't be in class, but if you have questions, feel free to message me on Remind. As always, I hope you guys have a great day. Make sure you hit that like button, smash the subscribe, all those fun YouTuber things. I'm really trying to grow this channel. Okay, I'm just kidding. I'm really not. I'm just doing this to help you guys out. But I appreciate you guys a lot. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and hopefully I will see you soon. See ya.